She told me she was on a work trip. I tracked her location. She was in a hotel with another man. So I invited her family over, played a slideshow of every lie she'd told, handed her an envelope with rent money, and watched her world collapse while I walked out. I don't know exactly when I started to feel like something was off with Marissa. Maybe it was late January, some Wednesday night when she said she had to jump on a quick client call. She was already in bed next to me, scrolling through TikTok with her glasses sliding down her nose, hair piled in a messy bun. The way she suddenly sat up, almost too fast, made my stomach twist. She didn't even look at me when she picked up the phone and walked out to the hallway. I could hear her voice drifting back into the bedroom in muffled little bursts. Low, almost careful, like she was trying to keep it private. For the first minute, I really believed it was just work. She's in marketing, calls happen at weird hours. But then she laughed. It wasn't the polite chuckle she does for clients. It was her real laugh. The one I used to hear when we'd stay up late watching trashy reality shows together, or when I'd surprise her with coffee in bed. When she came back 20 minutes later, she didn't say much. Just climbed back under the covers and turned her face away. I asked, "Everything okay?" and she mumbled, "Yeah, just a last-minute budget thing." I don't know why I didn't push harder. I think I just wanted to believe her. That next morning, while she was in the shower, I checked her phone screen, just to see if there were any new notifications. Nothing unusual. No messages she hadn't cleared, no calls in the log from unknown numbers. But I couldn't shake this weird prickling sense that something had shifted. It wasn't until a week later that I started noticing the other little changes. She'd always been pretty relaxed about her phone. She'd leave it on the coffee table when she went to the kitchen, or on the bathroom counter when she brushed her teeth. Now it was always either in her hand or face down. If she got a text while we were watching TV, she'd glance at it, lock the screen, and slide it into her hoodie pocket. One Saturday afternoon, she told me she needed to run errands, just some groceries and a stop at Target. She came back almost 3 hours later with 2 small bags. I asked if she'd eaten lunch out, and she said she grabbed a quick bite. No big deal. But when I helped her bring the bags to the kitchen, a crumpled receipt slipped out and landed on the floor near my foot. It was from Fratelli's, a nicer Italian place we'd been to once for our anniversary. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. A tiramisu. It stung so fast I felt my ears go hot. I picked it up, trying to keep my voice even. "Who'd you get lunch with?" She looked up from the sink, her eyes flicking down to the receipt in my hand. "Oh, Jen from work. We had a ton to catch up on. She's going through that divorce." She said it so smoothly I almost felt stupid for doubting. But Marissa hates wine at lunch, she always says it makes her sleepy. And she hadn't mentioned any plans to see Jen. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the way her face went still for half a second before she answered. The way she reached for the receipt, folded it up, and tucked it into her purse. The way she didn't ask me a single question about my day. I told myself I was overreacting. We'd been together 4 years, she moved into my condo after her lease was up, we split everything 50-50, we'd even talked about getting a dog. People don't just throw that away. But still, there was this hollow, sick feeling I couldn't shake. I didn't know then that the receipt was the first of 100 small clues I'd start collecting. I didn't know how much I'd come to hate that restaurant's name, or the cheap thrill of confirmation I'd feel every time I caught her in a new inconsistency. At the time, all I knew was that something between us had cracked, and I couldn't unsee it. After the receipt incident, I promised myself I wouldn't turn into one of those paranoid, controlling boyfriends. You know. The guys who follow their girlfriends around or put tracking apps on their phones. I told myself I'd let it go. But that promise lasted about 4 days. It was a Thursday morning, and I'd left work early because of a migraine. I came home around 11 a.m., expecting to find Marissa still asleep. She'd started freelancing more lately and kept odd hours. But the bed was made, and she was gone. No note, no text. Her laptop was closed on the coffee table. For a moment, I wondered if maybe she'd just run out for coffee, but when I peeked in the closet, I saw her leather tote missing, the one she usually carried when she wanted to look nice. Something about that detail, the effort she was making lately, started to feel deliberate. She'd always been pretty casual. Jeans and sweaters, hair in a bun. Now it was dresses and heels, for errands. I took a breath and told myself I was imagining things. Around 1 p.m., she texted me. "Hey babe, ran out for a Target run and to grab lunch. You need anything?" I stared at the screen for a while before typing, "No, all good. How's your day?" She sent back a smiley face and didn't say anything else. By the time she came home, carrying a single reusable bag and humming like nothing was wrong, I had a tension headache so bad I thought I'd throw up. She kissed my cheek and went to change. I watched her walk down the hall, trying to remember when I'd last felt sure of her. That evening, when she was in the shower, I checked our shared credit card account. I'm not proud of it, but I needed something concrete. There it was, a charge at Violet Bistro, $76. 2 entrees again. That was the second time in 2 weeks she'd had lunch with Jen. I tried to come up with an innocent explanation. Maybe she really was helping her friend. Maybe it was work. But the excuses were getting harder to swallow. The next week, she said she was going to visit her mom overnight. Her mom lives about an hour away. Normally, she'd ask me to come along or at least mention it a few days ahead. This time, she told me on a Friday morning and said she'd already packed. Before she left, she hugged me tight and kissed my forehead. "I'll call you later, okay?" She didn't call. At 9:30 that night, I tried to FaceTime her. No answer. At 10 o'clock, I texted, "All good? Haven't heard from you." No reply. At midnight, I checked her location on Find My Friends. She'd shared it months ago when she was traveling for work and forgot to turn it off. The little dot wasn't near her mom's house. It was at the Hotel Marquette, across town. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down, walked into the kitchen, and poured the last of the bourbon into a coffee mug. For the first time since we'd started dating, I realized I might be with someone who could lie to my face without blinking. The next morning, she came home around 9 o'clock. She smelled like hotel shampoo. She set her bag down and smiled at me like nothing happened. "Morning," she said, stretching. "You okay? You look tired." I almost asked her right then. Almost blurted out that I knew she wasn't at her mom's, that I'd seen her location. But I couldn't make the words come. Instead, I nodded and went to take a shower. Standing under the water, I thought about all the little details piling up. The lunches she couldn't explain. The calls she took in the hallway. The receipt. The hotel. If I confronted her now, she'd just deny it. Maybe she'd even find a way to spin it on me, call me insecure or controlling. I decided I needed proof. Real proof. Something she couldn't talk her way out of. That afternoon, when she left to get groceries, I created a separate iCloud account and set it up on an old phone I kept in my desk drawer. I knew she used her phone to back up photos automatically. If I could get her to sign into the new account, even just once, it might start syncing her pictures without her realizing it. It felt dirty. Sneaky. But I was past caring. I wish I could say part of me hoped I'd find nothing. That deep down, I wanted to be wrong. But the truth is, I already knew. The only thing left was to catch her in the act. Getting Marissa's phone synced was easier than I expected. That Sunday morning, we were sitting on the couch, each half watching some Netflix documentary about wine fraud. She went to the kitchen to make tea and left her phone unlocked on the armrest. My pulse thundered in my ears as I picked it up, hands clammy. I opened settings, signed her out of iCloud, and signed into the dummy account I'd set up the day before. It took maybe 30 seconds. She didn't come back until I was already setting the phone back down, trying to look bored. When she plopped back next to me and handed me a mug, I felt like I might puke. But she didn't suspect anything. She just leaned her head on my shoulder, sighed, and murmured, "I love you." I didn't say it back. That afternoon, I turned on the old phone and watched the photo library start populating. It was like watching the slow unfurling of a nightmare. First, there were screenshots, flight confirmations, restaurant reservations. A few selfies of her in the car, wearing clothes I'd never seen. Then came the real gut punch, a picture of her in a hotel mirror, wearing the black wrap dress she'd told me she was donating. She was holding her phone up, grinning. In the background, a man's suitcase was visible on the bed. I scrolled back further. There were pictures of them together, her leaning against his chest in what looked like a brewery, his arm around her waist. Another one at a concert. The date stamp was early December. This wasn't a fling. It had been going on for at least 2 months. Maybe longer. I sat in my office, door closed, staring at the screen. I felt hollow, like I'd been scooped out and replaced with static. The guy in the photos wasn't anyone I recognized. Tall, dark hair, a beard. He looked older than me, maybe mid-30s. Something about how comfortable they looked together made my skin crawl. That night, Marissa curled up next to me in bed and asked if I wanted to go hiking the next weekend. I mumbled something non-committal and pretended to fall asleep. I couldn't stand the thought of her touching me. Over the next few days, I kept collecting evidence. Every time I saw the little red badge on that old phone, new photos, I felt a mix of dread and grim validation. She was careful, but not careful enough. She'd take screenshots of hotel confirmations, text exchanges arranging when to meet. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I sat in the living room scrolling through the newest batch. There was a video, 30 seconds long. My stomach flipped before I even hit play. They were in a hotel room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, smiling shyly while he leaned down to kiss her neck. Her voice, low and breathy, "I missed you." I put the phone face down on the coffee table. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. That was the moment it became real. Not just suspicion, not just gut feelings. Proof. That evening, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop and started cataloging everything: dates, times, locations, screenshots. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it all, but I wanted to be ready. By the end of the week, I'd pieced together a rough timeline. The first hotel stay was in early November, about the time she started working late. The concert in December. The lunch dates in January. The weekend she claimed she was with her mom, another hotel. One night, when she fell asleep early, I slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen. I sat at the table in the dark, the only light coming from the fridge. I poured a glass of water and tried to picture my life without her. I thought about our first date, how nervous I'd been. How she'd teased me for ordering a salad. How she'd left a little note in my coat pocket the first night she stayed over. It all felt counterfeit now. But as much as it hurt, there was a small, cold part of me that was almost relieved. At least I wasn't imagining it. At least I wasn't crazy. That Sunday, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her yet. If I did, she'd find a way to spin it, to deflect. Maybe she'd even convince me to forgive her. I'd seen it happen to friends, how easily you can get talked back into believing in someone who doesn't deserve it. No. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I closed the laptop, stood up, and turned off the kitchen light. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like clarity. This wasn't going to end with a quiet breakup. I was going to end it on my terms. And she'd never see it coming. Once I decided to wait and watch, the next few weeks became almost surreal. We were living together, eating dinner at the same table, brushing our teeth side by side, and every moment I knew she was lying to my face. She started planning another conference trip in mid-February. She made a big show of telling me about it over breakfast. I might have to fly up to Seattle for a couple nights, she said, pouring herself coffee. She kept her gaze fixed on the mug, like she couldn't look me in the eye. "What's the conference?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Client Summit. They're rolling out new brand guidelines," she said, as if she'd rehearsed it. "Probably boring." I nodded. "Need a ride to the airport?" "No, I'll just Uber." Later that day, while she was at her co-working space, I checked her email on the old phone. Nothing about a conference. Instead, there was a confirmation from the Willow Creek Hotel downtown, 3 nights, King Suite. She'd forwarded it to her personal email and deleted the original. I sat back in my chair, my jaw tight. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That Friday morning, she packed a small suitcase, kissed my cheek, and told me she'd call when she landed. I watched her walk out the door, and something in me went quiet. Like a switch flipping. At 6 p.m., she texted, "Landed safely. Exhausted. Going to grab dinner and crash." I didn't reply. Instead, I drove downtown. My hands were cold on the steering wheel. I remember every second of that drive. The way the streetlights glowed against the wet pavement, how my heart felt too big for my ribcage. The Willow Creek has a small parking lot tucked behind the building. Her car was there, license plate a little crooked in the snow. I pulled into a spot across from the entrance and turned off the engine. For a long time, I just sat there. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that she'd walk out alone, maybe on a work call. That there'd be some explanation that didn't end with me watching my girlfriend walk into a hotel with another man. But around 8:15, the lobby doors opened, and there she was. Wearing that same black wrap dress. He was right behind her. They didn't see me. They were too wrapped up in each other. He put his hand on her lower back, and she laughed, her real laugh, the one I hadn't heard in weeks. I didn't take any pictures at first. I just watched them, my chest going hollow. Then I remembered. Proof. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few shots. They went inside the hotel restaurant, and I waited another hour, staring at the glowing windows. At 9:30, they came back out. She leaned in to kiss him. He tucked her hair behind her ear. They looked so comfortable, so practiced. Like this was routine. That's when I knew for certain it had been going on longer than I'd guessed. Months, maybe a year. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. I drove home in a daze. When I walked into the condo, it felt like I was stepping into someone else's life. Her coffee cup was still on the table. A throw blanket draped over the couch where we used to watch movies. I sat down on the floor in the hallway, the photos open on my phone. My hands were steady now. No more denial. No more excuses. Around midnight, she texted again, long day. Presentation went well though. Going to sleep. Love you. I stared at the screen for a long time. I almost replied. Almost typed something final, like don't come back. But I deleted it. Instead, I saved the photos in a folder labeled Seattle. I backed them up to my Google Drive, just in case. The next morning, she sent a selfie from what looked like a conference room. I zoomed in. You could see the corner of the hotel headboard reflected in the TV behind her. She hadn't even bothered to leave the room before staging the lie. I started planning. I called my friend Owen, who's a lawyer. I told him I needed advice on ending a lease and splitting assets with a partner I wasn't married to. I started making lists, what was mine, what she'd bought. What I needed to move out. I canceled the vacation to Italy we'd booked last fall. Called the airline and asked about a refund. The customer service rep asked why I was canceling, and I almost laughed. Change of plans, I said. That night, I sat in bed with the lights off, listening to the silence. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was going to end. And it was going to end on my terms. The hardest part wasn't watching her lie. It was acting like I believed her. When Marissa got back from her conference, she breezed through the door like nothing had happened. She hugged me and launched into some half-baked story about a keynote speaker who bored her to tears. I nodded, pretending to listen. In my head, I was cataloging everything she touched. The suitcase she'd packed with lingerie she never wore for me anymore, the handbag she'd tucked receipts into, the phone she guarded like it was her last line of defense. For the next 2 weeks, I kept up the act. If she noticed that I'd stopped touching her, that my smile never quite reached my eyes, she didn't say anything. She'd just scroll Instagram and tell me about her day in that practiced, breezy voice. I started moving my valuables out in small, careful increments. A couple of books at a time. The watch my grandfather left me. My external hard drive with all my personal files. Each night, I'd slip something into my work backpack and drop it off at Owen's house after work. I also opened a new checking account in my name alone. I left just enough money in the joint account to cover March's bills so she wouldn't get suspicious. I called my landlord to ask how much notice I'd have to give to break the lease. He said 30 days. When I hung up, I felt like I could finally breathe. On the third Sunday after she came home, we were watching a cooking show when she mentioned the Italy trip. I was thinking we could upgrade the Florence hotel. Maybe get a suite with a balcony? I paused the TV. Actually, I had to cancel the trip. Her head whipped around so fast I almost laughed. What? Why? Work, I said simply. They're moving up the product launch. I couldn't get the time off. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For a second, I thought she might push back, but then she nodded slowly. Oh. That sucks. I could see her doing the mental math. If she was planning to use that trip to spend more time with him, she was going to have to improvise. Later that night, I sat at my desk going through the folder of evidence again. I don't know why I kept opening it. Maybe because some part of me needed the constant reminder not to cave. Not to feel sorry for her when the time came. I started drafting an email to our closest friends and her family, people who'd known us as a couple. The subject line was simple, important. I didn't send it. Not yet. But just having it ready made me feel like I was taking back some control. A week later, I made an appointment with a locksmith. On the day I planned to confront her, I wanted to be able to change the locks as soon as she was out. I also boxed up her things I knew she'd ask about, her photography equipment, a box of keepsakes, the fancy cookware she'd bought when she moved in. I stacked everything in the guest room closet. Marissa didn't notice any of it. She was too busy planning another overnight client meeting in April. One night, she fell asleep with her phone unlocked on the nightstand. I picked it up and opened her messages. She had a contact saved under A. No last name. I scrolled through the thread, feeling nothing but a quiet, cold detachment. A. I can't stop thinking about you. Marissa, me too. Last weekend was perfect. A. When can I see you again? Marissa, soon. He's been busy with work. I'll figure it out. I took screenshots, emailed them to myself, and deleted the sent email from her phone. After that, something shifted in me. The sadness was gone. I was just done. The following Friday, I invited her parents and a few of our mutual friends over. I told them I was planning a surprise celebration for her promotion. Everyone thought it was sweet. I told them not to mention it to her, I want it to be a total surprise. The night before the gathering, Marissa was sitting on the couch in her pajamas, scrolling her phone, oblivious. I studied her face and felt nothing. Just a hollow finality, like the last page of a book. When she got up to go to bed, she paused in the hallway and looked back at me. You coming? In a bit, I said. I have some stuff to finish. She shrugged and disappeared into the bedroom. I watched the hallway go dark. I thought about how she'd look when the truth hit her. How she'd try to talk her way out of it. I stood up, turned off the TV, and sat down to write out exactly what I was going to say when everyone was gathered. No yelling. No dramatics. Just facts. And then she could take her suitcase and leave. The morning of the celebration, I woke up before sunrise. Marissa was still asleep, curled on her side, her hair spilling across the pillow. For a split second, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with. But then I remembered the photos, the messages, the nights she'd climbed into this bed after being with him. I got up quietly, showered, and dressed in jeans, and the button-down she'd always said brought out my eyes. It felt almost symbolic, like I was reclaiming something. Around 10 a.m., I texted her parents, her brother, and our friends, running a little behind. Come by at 11:30 instead. Marissa was in the kitchen making coffee when I walked in. She smiled over her mug. You're up early. Yeah, I said, my voice steady. Just wanted to get some stuff done. She didn't suspect a thing. She was wearing leggings and one of my old t-shirts, her hair in a messy bun. She looked so casual, so normal, that if you'd walked in, you'd think we were any ordinary couple about to host brunch. At 11:20, I told her I needed her help in the living room. Just a sec, she said, tapping away at her phone. Probably texting him. My stomach flipped, but I forced myself to stay calm. By 11:35, everyone had arrived, her parents, her younger brother Kyle, my friend Owen, our friends Sam and Natalie. They stood awkwardly by the kitchen island, holding coffee and smiling, waiting for the big reveal. Marissa came out of the bedroom, her face lighting up when she saw everyone. What's going on? She looked at me, laughing nervously. What is this? I picked up the remote from the coffee table. My hands were perfectly steady. I wanted to celebrate something important, I said. She blinked. Babe, what? I turned on the TV. The screen lit up with the folder I'd titled Seattle. I took a breath and clicked into it. The first photo came up, her and the bearded man at the hotel restaurant. I didn't look at her. This, I said, my voice flat, is where you were the night you told me you were at a conference. There was a stunned silence. Someone let out a small gasp, I think it was her mom. Marissa's eyes darted around the room. What is this? What are you doing? I clicked to the next photo, her in the mirror, the suitcase in the background. And this is you in the hotel room. With him. Her face went white. She turned to me, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find the right script. I can explain, no, I said quietly. You can't. I moved through the photos one by one, screenshots of her texts, reservation confirmations, selfies she'd taken when she thought I'd never see them. Her brother set his coffee down with a clatter. Her father looked away, jaw clenched. Marissa's voice finally came out, shrill and cracking. I can't believe you went through my stuff. This is such a violation. I turned to her then, meeting her eyes for the first time. You're right. It is a violation. Almost as big as the one where you lied to me for months and brought another man into our life. Her lip trembled. Please. Can we talk about this privately? I shook my head. No. I'm done protecting you. I'm done letting you spin your version of this to everyone. She looked around the room, searching for someone to take her side. No one spoke. Even Natalie, who had always been her closest friend, kept her gaze fixed on the floor. I pulled an envelope from my back pocket and set it on the coffee table. This is the rest of March's rent and a check to cover the utilities. I'll be out by tonight. You have until Monday to get your things out. Her voice broke. You're leaving. I felt something inside me settle into place. No, I said calmly. You are. Silence filled the room like a held breath. Her mother finally whispered, "Marissa, how could you?" Marissa turned away from everyone, wiping her face with the heel of her hand. "This isn't fair," she choked. I took a last look around, the living room we'd decorated together, the couch we'd picked out on a rainy Sunday, the photos of us on the bookshelf. Then I turned to Owen. "Ready to help me load the car?" He nodded. I picked up my keys and walked past Marissa without another word. She didn't try to stop me. Outside, the cold air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The life I'd built with her was over. But at least I got to end it on my own terms. I didn't look back as Owen helped me carry the last boxes out to the car. We loaded them in silence, my books, my clothes, a couple of framed photos I couldn't bring myself to leave behind. The cold February wind cut through my jacket, but I felt oddly clear-headed, like a fog I'd been living in had finally lifted. By the time I closed the trunk, Marissa still hadn't come outside. Part of me had expected her to run after me, to try one last time to cry or bargain her way out of the consequences. But she stayed inside with the mess she'd made. Owen clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah. Actually, I think I am." We drove to my new place. A furnished short-term rental across town. It was small and plain, with beige walls and a lumpy sofa, but it was mine. No memories clinging to the furniture, no ghost of someone else's perfume on the sheets. Just a quiet, empty space where I could start over. Over the next week, the texts started rolling in. Some from friends who'd been at the confrontation, some from people who'd heard about it secondhand. Most were supportive. "Man, I'm so sorry. If you need anything, I'm here. She did you dirty. You deserve better." A few were more complicated. Natalie texted to say she felt torn, that she still cared about Marissa but couldn't condone what she did. I told her she didn't have to pick sides. But privately, I knew things would never be the same. Marissa texted once, 3 days after I left, "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to talk about. For a while, I wondered if I should have handled it differently. If the public confrontation had been too much. But every time that thought crept in, I reminded myself of all the nights she'd looked me in the eye and lied without flinching. All the times she'd come home from him and kissed me like nothing was wrong. I didn't owe her a graceful exit. I didn't owe her anything. A month later, I started therapy. Not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand how I'd missed the signs for so long. My therapist, a calm older woman named Louise, listened without judgment. She told me something that stuck with me: trusting someone isn't a flaw. It's what makes relationships possible. You can be open-hearted and still have boundaries. It felt like a weight lifted off my chest. I hadn't been naive. I'd just believed her. And if that was a mistake, it was her failing, not mine. By the time April rolled around, the lease on the old condo was up. Marissa moved out a week before the deadline. She didn't leave a note or try to contact me again. My landlord told me she'd cleaned everything and handed over the keys without a word. Owen came by to help me unpack the last of my things. We ordered pizza and cracked open a couple of beers. He raised his bottle toward me. "To new beginnings," he said. I clinked mine against his. "To peace and quiet." We both laughed, and for the first time in months, it didn't feel forced. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself replaying certain moments, her voice saying, "I love you," the way she'd looked walking into that hotel. But instead of feeling sick, I felt detached. Like watching someone else's story. People love to say betrayal will break you. That you'll never be the same. And maybe they're right. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes, the break is exactly what you need. I didn't come out of this bitter or jaded. I came out clearer. Stronger. More sure of what I'd never tolerate again. A few weeks ago, I matched with someone new on a dating app. I'm not rushing into anything, but I don't feel afraid either. I trust myself to see the signs next time. To walk away sooner if something doesn't feel right. Some friends still say they can't believe how calm I was that day, how I laid it all out without yelling, how I handed her that envelope and walked away. I think they expected me to crumble. But the truth is, when someone shows you exactly who they are, the most dignified thing you can do is believe them. I don't regret anything. Not the years I spent loving her, not the months I spent unraveling her lies, and definitely not the way I ended it. Because in the end, she lost someone who loved her without reservation. And I lost someone who never really existed. That's not a tragedy. That's freedom.